everyone. I'm Kenny Rice. Welcome into the Horse Racing Show. It's finally here. First Saturday in September is nearing. The Kentucky Derby getting ready to run. On lead guitar has always been Chaffins. Ben, did you think we'd make it here to this point?
When they first announced it, I was not certain, but it came back faster than I thought it would, and we're here at last.
Here it is. It's right up on us, and in this a year like no other year, it's like no other Derby in many ways. The big favorite is Tiz the Law, as would be expected. He's going to be on the outside part of this field, along with Authentic and Honor AP, the three favorites. What's really interesting about this field is morning line, 8 are at 50-1. There's 18 horses in it, 8 are at 50-1. Just about everybody else is 20-1 or more. So that's how crazy it is, how wide open it is, with the exception of the standout Tiz the Law and a couple of other horses. One of those, Honor AP, is ridden by the Hall of Fame jockey Mike Smith. We'll be talking to Big Money Mike in just a few minutes. He's won 2 Kentucky Derbies, and he is closing in maybe on his third. If he does that, he would become only the 7th man to have won 3 Derbies. Eddie Arcaro and Bill Hartack, by the way, they've won 5 each. Bill Shoemaker has won 4. What Mike is also going to do on this, his 26th Derby, is tie Bill Shoemaker for most appearances by a jockey. That's the kind of career Mike's had. He's on Honor AP. We'll talk to him in just a moment. He can also talk about long shots because he made history with one of the longest shots in Derby history. Donna, of course, is the longest shot and probably always will be at 91-1 back in 1913. That was my first Derby, Ben.
I'm sure it was a lot different then than it is today.
Yeah, about the same. And Country House last year at 65-1, second largest long shot ever. You know, in our lifetime, we've seen 3 of them. Mind That Bird at 50-1 in 2009, and then in 2005, Mike Smith was aboard a horse named Giacomo at 50-1, who was trained by John Sheriffs, by the way. They team up with Honor AP, so it's going to be a whole lot different this year coming into the Derby with a horse that's one of the 3 favorites, as it was that overlooked 50-1 shot. But Mike will talk about that, and then we're going to talk with our friend from NBC, a longtime friend of mine as well, Donna Brothers. Donna has some insight into the Safety Coalition. There was some political news made this week. The government is going to get more involved in the safety of the horses and of the racetracks. We'll talk about that, as well as take a look at what is one of the more interesting Kentucky Derby fields. And when you look at the horses that are in the top 3 right now, all of them were mentioned back in March and April as being possible Derby contenders, and they've held up. That would be, of course, Tiz the Law, Honor AP, and Authentic. So kudos to the trainers there for getting them there. That's Sheriffs, as we mentioned, Barkley tagged with Tiz the Law, and Bob Baffert, who has Authentic, that they still have those horses going. As we heard last week from Enforceable's trainer Mark Cassey, for him and a few others, they wouldn't have the horse in the Derby had it been run the first Saturday in May, but it turned out to be this whole COVID mess turned out to be a little bit of a blessing for them. It bought them some time as far as getting a horse ready to run on now the first Saturday in September. What's it like to be in the Derby? What's it like to win the Derby? Mike Smith knows it all. He's one of the winningest jockeys of all time, and the Hall of Fame trainer will join us next. Donna Brothers from NBC Sports a little later. You're listening to The Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to The Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad that you're with us and delighted to have this man with us. He is one of the great jockeys of all time. He's a Hall of Famer, a 2-time Derby winner, a Triple Crown winner, and a guy that I've had a friendship with for, well, at least 30 years. Here he is, the man who'll be riding Honor AP in the Derby, Mike Smith. Hello, Mike.
How are you, man? Good to hear from you.
Same here. Wow, we do go back a ways, don't we?
Yes, we do, man. It might even be longer than 30.
You know, at my age, I hate to talk about age and weight. 2 things that they talk about a lot with athletes, though, won't they? But, you know, in your case, I think it's almost a celebration. If you win this thing at 55 years old, you'll pass Bill Shoemaker, who was 54 when he won it with Ferdinand in 86.
And, to me, it's just amazing that you're still at the top of the game at your age. Your conditioning fascinates me and anybody that's around you.
Well, I've worked hard at it. If I did anything right, that was something I took up at an early age, was physical fitness and working out and training with personal trainers and trying to be the best I could possibly be. And it's starting to pay off in these later years.
You don't even think about age, I'll bet.
Right now, I can do every bit as much as I could when I was 30. Might have been able to do a little faster at 30, but I can still do it. So that's a good sign.
and fast, what about your horse coming in here with Honor AP?
Really excited about this horse. I've been excited about him really since the moment we started with him. He's bred extremely well. He's extremely talented. And he really seems like distance is going to be right up his alley. I mean, the further that we go, the better he seems to get at everything, rather that be just training in the morning or his breezes or even in his races. As you saw in the Santa Anita Derby going a mile and 8, he wanted every bit a part of that and galloped out like he wanted more. So we're excited about going in. Of course, the Derby is always a tough task, but we're given the opportunity and he fires his race. He's going to make some race of it.
If it sets up perfectly for you, where would you like to be with Honor AP, say from about the 3/8 pole coming around?
Probably within 4 or 5 of them. If I'm a little closer, that's not a bad thing either, depending on the pace, Kenny. But with a clear shot, once because I like to get him going with a clear shot at him. If I can just get him where I can let him start marching forward at the 3.5 to 3. And really get to where, where I hit the quarter pole, I got him all out and running because he just keeps coming at you. That's his strength. He'll just keep running at you. So you just want a good, smooth, fair trip is what you'd like. Where that puts us early on in the race, I'm not sure, Kenny. With our collector out now, he with some speed. How quick the pace is going to be, as you well know in the Derby, it's usually pretty quick. So that should be good for us. But if he's laying anywhere from right, 5th to 7th, right in there, maybe even a little closer, I'd be really happy.
You mentioned Art Collector, who on the day of the Derby draw, it was announced he had a minor foot injury. He's going to be sidelined. Maybe he'll be back for the Preakness. The ups and downs and everybody holding their breath. I don't care if it's the first Saturday in May or the first Saturday in September. Till you get a horse to the gate, you can't be sure you're going to be in the Derby.
You're exactly right. I was in the same boat with Omaha Beach, going in as a favorite. Had really, really high expectations, and then next thing you know, you're out of the Derby, and it's heart-wrenching, and my heart goes out to the connections of our collector. I know what it's like. I know what they're going through right now, and, of course, we're all happy that he's safe. Everything's going to be okay, and he's going to be fine, for down the road. But, man, there's only one shot at the Derby, so it's going to sting for a while. They'll get back in there. Those connections are too good, man. You can't keep them down. They'll be right back in there.
Yeah, you're definitely right on that. And talking with Hall of Fame jockey Mike Smith, and, did you think back in May, when you're being pointed to May and Honor AP was on the Derby trail then, I guess everybody fingers crossed it would keep going because he's one of the few that I can remember. Baffert's got a couple, and, of course, 'tis the law, but there aren't a whole lot that we were talking about, say, in, March, early April to take a look at. And then when it was postponed, still talking about that horse. That's quite a testament to John Sheriff's and everyone that the horse is still going well and coming in as one of the solid favorites.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. That those are horses, along with 'tis the law, and like you said, Baffert's horse, that you heard on before May, so that, if you would have been in the Derby in May, they would have been horses that would have had a little legitimate shot at it, and now here you are in September, and they still are. So yeah, my hat goes off to John and Barkley Tagg, and of course Bob Baffert, man, all of them.
What's this been like with you, the whole COVID situation, as far as how has this affected you in terms of like when you have to show up and you have to take the tests and you're kind of isolated if you go out on the road and you leave the California base? So what's this whole deal like been you for Mike?
Well, it hadn't been fun. I would.
Yeah.
It's certainly distracting, and it's just something I guess we all got to go through, especially when you're traveling in from out of town. I had to get here yesterday, Monday, to take the test. He take the first one. Now we got to turn right back around and take another one on Thursday. And I had to take one before I left to get down here. So my nose has been poked and prod at so many times. I can't tell you how many tests I've taken.
Yeah, geez, yeah. And I guess like some places the jockeys will tell me like you go and you're kind of like isolated from the rest of the jockeys, right? If you're the guy that's coming in some tracks during this whole thing. Of course, that's a tough thing, but I guess the good thing is they were still racing during all this, the only sport that kept going.
Exactly. But yeah, we'll be in a different area. We won't be able to be allowed into the normal jocks room, which is a bit discomforting. I mean, you don't have all the facilities that everyone else gets, that the local riders get. That you really don't have much of anything, to be honest with you. But it still gives us a chance to compete, and we could sit here and complain, or we could go out there and do our best. And I'd rather go out there and just do my best.
Well, they do. Do they throw some a bucket of water in there and say good luck with the shower? How's it?
Pretty much. They try to make it as accommodating and as comfortable as possible, but it's just difficult when it's not something that's already been built and made for you. Where you have the luxury of having a sitting area. We got couches and TVs and all that kind of stuff, saunas and showers, and we're pretty much just in a room.
People have asked, and you're the man to ask this to. They've asked me, what do you think it's going to be like with no people there? You've ridden in big races already this year, like Santa Anita Derby. I guess no people there. I covered the Belmont, no fans there. Does it make a difference to you as far as fans or not? I'm sure everybody likes to hear the cheers, but when you're focused coming into that race.
Well, once you're in the race, no. I mean, you got way too much to think about, Kenny. But it's the before and the after, and even somewhat during, because of this, especially in the Derby. I mean, you're going to have 140 to 150,000 people there, and the electricity's in the air, and the noise, and just the cheers and the crowd going crazy, and it's unbelievable. Whereas now, especially the Derby, so I mean, we don't know until Saturday, but man, magnify everything times 10. I mean, you're so used to hearing, from 150,000 people, all of a sudden there might be a couple hundred in there just from the owners, I guess, maybe, and that's about it. So it's going to be pretty lonely.
Some horses it may be better for them. I don't know. We've seen horses get skittish.
Yeah, I mean, as you well know, I mean, some horses the race is over before the Derby even starts because of all the the energy and the people. Some of them just have a meltdown. So it's going to be totally different. I don't think you'll see horses stopping near as quick as you normally would in the Derby, like you would in the past. Some horses are done, like I said, before the race even starts. I think this is certainly going to, it's going to be different for a lot of horses. And as you well know, whenever it's kind of quiet, well, they think they're out there kind of in the morning, and they forget all about all the hype.
We're talking with Hall of Fame jockey Mike Smith. He rides Honor AP in the Kentucky Derby. We'll take a quick break and be right back with Mike right after this on the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Kenny Rice here. Mike Smith, the Hall of Fame jockey who's done about everything in the sport, including winning the Triple Crown with Justified just 2 years ago. He has a record 26 Breeders' Cup races, Breeders' Cup victories. And this will be his 26th Derby, which ties him for the all-time record with Bill Shoemaker, the legendary Bill Shoemaker. Yeah. Wow. Did you ever think the kid from New Mexico at one time would be riding in this many Derbies? I mean, you think of all the great jockeys, and it's going to be you and Shoemaker after Saturday that's been in the most.
That's pretty incredible. That's a great honor to be mentioned along with Bill Shoemaker in anything would be pretty incredible. But to be mentioned along with him as well as the Kentucky Derby, well, as you well know in our sport, that's the holy grail, buddy. That's the big one. So that's quite an honor.
Let's go back. Does it ever seem like 15 years in that 50-1 shot named Giacomo? And here you and trainer John Sheriff's team up again with Honor AP. A little different coming in here with Honor AP, you two, than when you guys came in with the long shot Giacomo.
Well, it certainly is, in a lot of different reasons. First of all, there's wasn't much pressure coming in. It probably even a bigger price than 51 to start with. They wind up going off that, but that was just because all my family bet on it. But otherwise, it would have been 100 and something to 1. But yeah, now coming in with a horse that has a so to say a legit, one of the legit favorites going into the race. But then again, you got this whole COVID thing. So I mean, everything is so different, Kenny. It's crazy, man. It's new for everybody. And you know what? I'm just going to go out there and enjoy it. And hopefully just do our job. If I can, get a good trip with this horse and give him the opportunity that he certainly deserves, he's not without a big chance.
Well, you've been on both. You've been on that long shot, and then you come in on a favorite in Justified just 2 years ago, and much was expected, and obviously much was delivered, winning that Triple Crown.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was totally different. I mean, going in with Justified, he was he would have been the Tiz the Law, going into the Derby this year is kind of the same way where although he was lightly raced, he come very, very highly regarded and all the connections we all felt all along. If we could pull this first one off, well, he's not a chance without pulling the next 2 off pretty handy. And things, we were very blessed. Things went our way and all went well.
In John Sheriff's, you have one of the low-key guys, a terrific horseman, obviously, one of the low-key guys in the sport. But he gets him ready for the big days. When he usually shows up, and he doesn't just pop into every big race, he usually shows up strong.
Without a doubt. That's the one great thing about John. He'll let the horse tell him and take his time on getting there. You might not see him there as many times as others, but let me tell you, when he's there, he's with a big chance. And he's really good at getting a horse fine-tuned and getting him to peak at the right moment and then holding him there for quite a while. So, again, we're really excited about the way this horse is coming into this race. We've really stepped up his training from his last prep race leading into this race, and he's really responded to it. And he seems to have really moved forward in it as far as his training goes in the morning. Now, you got to certainly do that in the afternoon. And we all know that Churchill's a different track, a different surface. So they got to handle it. That's a very, very important part of it as well, as handling this racetrack. Although it's fast, it can be a bit cuffy. Some horses absolutely love it. Some just aren't too sure of the footing on it. But if he gets over it like I'm hoping he will, in the way he's training, he should run very big.
Mike, as far as you're talking about the differences in tracks, are the East Coast tracks, Belmont's kind of its own track, I guess, but is it a whole lot different once you cross the Mississippi River from the California tracks, from Santa Anita, the home base of Honor AP, to coming to Churchill and running over that surface?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. They're all different. Each state, the dirt's different, the ground's different. He's coming off a really deep track right now at Del Mar. Been training over at Del Mar, and right now is pretty much on the deep side. Whereas back in the day, it used to be really, really fast. It's a whole lot deeper out there now. So I'm hoping that kind of gives him even a little advantage, maybe. Of course, them horses coming off the East Coast, they're coming off of deep tracks as well, especially if they trained over there on the Oklahoma track, where it can be pretty deep there at Saratoga. What they do, they get a lot out of that, and they come up to these quicker racetracks and they bounce over them a lot of times. So I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah. Do you ever get a feel when you're going out there that, well, I guess, when you're coming out, and of course, I don't know if you'll hear My Old Kentucky Home this year. I guess they'll obviously still play it. You won't hear the roar of the crowd. But do you kind of get a feeling when you're, looking around and sizing everybody up that, you got a pretty good shot going in there? Maybe you won't win it, but you think you have a pretty good shot. Do you get that feeling in past Derby experiences?
Oh, without a doubt. And especially whenever you're seeing how the competition and your horse as well is handling the whole situation. Sometimes you're on that one that's not, and you're like, oh, man, come on. They just kind of melt under the pressure, and you can see it happening to others. And if yours is handling it well, and you're seeing another horse that's pretty live not handling it that well, it certainly gives you a little more confidence going in, So there's a lot of different things. But again, I don't think we'll see any of that this year, Kenny, because there ain't going to be no crowd,
We'll be able to talk to each other really easily, won't we?
Yeah, you'll be able to hear a whole lot more, I'll tell you that.
I still go back. I've used this before. Todd Pletcher was funny at the Belmont. He said, I wouldn't even mind hearing some people boo me. I just like to hear some other voices, except for the few trainers we got.
Yeah, you got it's fun to hear it all, man.
Uh, is there a moment aside from the two derbies that you've won, obviously with Giacomo in '05 and Justified just 2 years ago? Is there a derby moment that really stands out for you other than the obvious two wins, Mike?
Well, of course, your first one, I'd have to say, Canadian, the first time you get the opportunity to ride this race, it's like no other. I know people say, "Oh, just got this like any other race." Once you get out there, well, it's not, man. Especially back when we had, a crowd and everything. It's different. I mean, you can even see jocks that have the meltdown, just like the horses. I mean, it's incredible what the Derby is and what the feeling's like. You're in the championship. It's not like playing a regular season game, man. You're playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's big.
Any of the young guys ever ask you for advice, or would you give them any if they ask you?
Yeah, I mean, we all talk to each other. I remember, even riders talking to me, just ride it like it's any other race, but it wasn't. It wasn't just like any other race, and so I always tell guys, you know what, just learn to appreciate where you are. It's tough. Just realize that you've made it, and take a deep breath, and leg on each side, mine in the middle, and go out there and do your best, man. But it's different. It's a mile and a quarter, but it's a tough mile and a quarter. I mean, they lead there running, man. And a lot of guys jockeying for positions, especially when it's a 20-horse field. Again, with all the fans and all the electricity in the air, it's just a different feeling. And it's something that if you've gotten some experience in it, it certainly helps. That doesn't by no means mean that you can't win it without experience. And there's been plenty of riders win it the first time doing it. But I'll tell you what, being there a time or two certainly does help.
Yeah, and you mentioned, like you say, once it gets started, fans or no fans there, in this case, looks, when you're out there and you're going against 16, 17 other horses, sometimes 18, 19 other horses, it's not always about the best horse winning on that day. You get a super horse like a Justify that does, but, then you get, as you know, a 50-1 shot every now and then, or something in between that pops in there and has maybe not any more moments, but they had that one moment.
Yep, and it's about, the horse handling it, that race, getting the trip. I mean, there's a lot to it. Best horse, a lot of times, don't win the Derby.
And
but it's so hard to win the Triple Crown. You'll see a different one, pull it off in each one. So it's a tough thing when you've pulled off all three. Believe me, that horse has done something. There's something special.
And as you kept going with Justify, when you get back to that Triple Crown in 18, did you get more nervous with each race? Did you get more confident with each race?
Honestly, to me, the one that I really was most nerve-wracking to me was the Preakness, because we had already won the Derby, and I knew that if you jumped well, we would be tough there. And either you're heading to the next one undefeated, or you're heading to the next one. If you make the next one, you know what? You gave it your best shot, and it didn't work. But he, of course, won well within himself, and then now you got to win. And I honestly felt like the Belmont would be a place that he would like a whole lot, probably the most, because he was a big, powerful horse, and those big old sweeping turns at Belmont I thought would really suit him. So I wanted to be able to hopefully win the Preakness without squeezing the limit too much, which can happen. I mean, as you well know, you in normal times you run the Derby, and they had to run pretty hard to leave it. They're all out in the Derby, and then you wheel back in 2 weeks. And then you got to compete again in the Preakness, and then you will right back in 3 weeks. So it's a lot to ask of a horse. You'd hope that if you did win the Derby, that you could pull the Preakness off without having to, asking for his best, and that's what we were able to do. We were able to win it, not asking for his best. So I think that really conserved and saved a lot of energy for the Belmont, because he felt great in the Belmont. I enjoyed the Belmont more than all of them, because regardless if I won it or not, man, I'm going for the Triple Crown, and I was living the dream, and I had already told myself I'm gonna enjoy this no matter what. I'm not gonna let this pressure get to me, and I really did. I mean, I was smiling the whole post parade before the race even ran. You'd have thought I'd already won the race.
I remember how confident and happy you were, and Baffert was, and everybody seemed pretty confident going into that.
We really were. You just sometimes you just get that feeling. That don't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but I just knew that as long as he came away from the gate in good order, it was going to be extremely difficult to beat him.
Mike Smith, all the best to you. It's been great catching up, my friend. Honor AP. You'll try for your third Derby win. You'll tie Bill Shoemaker for most Derby mounts with 26 going into this weekend. What a great career and still going strong. Mike, thanks for being with me.
Hey, thank you so much, buddy. Let's keep it going. As long as you're around, that means I'm around, and we're doing good. We're talking to each other.
Thank God we're still standing and going, pal. Let's hope for a few more.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Smith, one of the greatest jockeys of all time. He rides Honor AP in the Kentucky Derby. More on the Horse Racing Show when we come back. This is the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Glad that you're with us. Delighted to have this dear friend of mine and my colleague at NBC. She's an award-winning reporter and an author and a jockey that helped break a lot of barriers for women. She is Donna Brothers. Hello, Donna.
Kenny Rice, always good to be with you, whether it's via podcast or doing one of our shows together or just hanging out. Always good to be on with you.
Well, when we last saw each other in person, we were both working the Stephen Foster handicap in the Fleur-de-Lis that day, and nobody was there except obviously, some of the owners and the jockeys. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty much going to be that way on Saturday at the Derby. Here we'll be over there again, almost by ourselves.
Yeah, so strange. I mean, that day we covered the Stephen Foster. There was one grade one. And so for the Oaks and for the Derby, there's a lot of graded stakes races. So I imagine that there will be more connections around just by the nature of that, but it's still going to be eerily quiet compared to every other Oaks and Derby we've covered. And you and I have covered all of them all the Derbies anyway, since 2001. You before that, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I did a few with the old ESPN days. And then when I did local TV, I've seen a lot of Derbies. You've seen a lot of Derbies.
Sure.
I don't know. I was just looking. We've got 8. This morning line right now. Things can obviously change, but open up with 8 50-1 shots. Almost half the field is and over half the field is a long shot. You got the 20 and the 30-1s in there.
Gosh, that has to be unprecedented.
I cannot think of it off the top of my head that many long shots. When I just first down and looked at our friend Mike Battaglia's morning line, that's a lot of rolling the dice out there. Some people might be doing on this, Donna, just for fun.
Yeah, it sure is. Who would have thought? I mean, but I guess that's what happens when you run the Derby in September. Let's just go back to running it in May next year, okay?
I'm all for that. Now you've been on the backside. I think you were again this morning. The procedures, the precautions. How's everything going at Churchill Downs?
They're being as careful as they could possibly be. First of all, I drove to the stable gate to go in the way that I always go in, and that was not an option. So I had to drive around another way, figure out the other entrance into the stable gate, which is totally different. And as soon as you get in, they scan your either racing license or your driver's license. You have to be on the list of approved people in advance. Then you get your temperature taken. You have to go over and get your COVID test. And then you get a wristband on, and if people are walking around without a wristband on, they're stopped. And so anyway, it was pretty, it wasn't a nominal security gate procedure. It was serious. And it also carried over onto the backside. I didn't have a conversation with anybody where we were, less than 6 feet apart, where we didn't both have our masks on. People were being very careful. They're being hypervigilant because they want racing to continue, and they know that that's what they're going to have to do.
Yeah, and one of the things is a positive right now. I'm happy to hear it, and I guess I first probably learned it from one of your tweets. Is that Wayne Lucas, the coach, the king, is back and is doing better after a bout with COVID-19, which would make him only the second person I know that I personally know who's had COVID.
Yeah, we talked about it this morning because I was on the backside, and he said that he said it was scary. It's a big thing. He said he lost consciousness maybe 2 or 3 times, all in about the same period of time, the same day. Maybe the same hour or so. He said he just couldn't get his air, and he was finally glad when that part passed. But Wayne Lucas and his work ethic is legendary. He's a guy who's at the barn every morning by about 4:30, 5 o'clock, 360, maybe 3 days a year. Maybe he takes 2 days off. He was away from the barn 20 days. So that goes to tell you just how under the weather he was. But guess what? He turns 85 tomorrow, and he survived it. So God bless that man.
Oh, exactly. God bless him. Like you said, that has to be a record for Wayne to ever be off work that long for anything.
Oh God, yeah.
Hey, Donna, this Derby, like you say, first off, the whole September Derby, as if that isn't strange enough.
Yeah.
But it almost looks like Tis the Law, maybe Honor AP, maybe Authentic. Is it that cut and dried now, especially with the defection? And I certainly hate it for Tommy Drury and everybody associated with Art Collector having a little foot issue and having to be scratched. That was I hated that for all those connected.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, they really deserve to have a horse in the Derby, but so many people have tried. It's the one race that you can't buy your way into. You can buy the right horses, you can breed the right horses, but somehow you can't make it happen. And then one day you just end up with the Derby horse. And this is what's happened with Barclay Tagg now twice in Saratoga Stables, and he's rightfully so going to be the heavy favorite at 3-5. But I think part of this is just an after ripple, a ripple effect, I would say, of having the Derby in September, because by this point, we feel like a lot of these people, or a lot of these horses, have shown us what they can do and shown us what they can't do. Right. And so, we feel like a lot of these horses just are not good enough to beat horses like Tis the Law, Honor AP, Authentic. And isn't it funny, by the way, that those three horses drew right next to each other? Honor AP in the 16, Tis the Law in the 17, Authentic in the 18. So all we have to do is look to the outside of the starting gate for that break, watch those three horses, and you can pretty much watch the race a lot easier than in years past.
That's perfect. That's well said. Talking with the award-winning Donna brothers. And Donna, like you mentioned, with so many strange things happening this whole year, we all know all that. It's probably time somebody won from the 17th spot anyway, isn't it?
Oh, God, you're right. The 17 has been the kiss of death, hasn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's time for that to change. Or I don't know. We might have a 50-1, a 25-1, and another 50-1 hit the board. I mean, I don't know. It seems to me, like you say, when you look on those outside, Tis the Law, Honor AP, and Authentic, it looks like that's the trifecta on paper.
Yeah.
But.
Exactly. Yeah. But who knows exactly what's going to happen. And, we get these research packets from NBC, and they gave us a stat. Let me see. I'm looking at it right now that says no favorite has gone off at under 2-1 since Point Given in 2001, who finished fifth. Anyway, the point is that no heavy favorite that's lower than 10-1 has won the Derby since like 2000 and I don't know. Wow. It's been a while. It's been at least 12 years. It could have been longer. I can't remember exactly what the stat is, and the part that I was reading wasn't exactly the stat. But so being the prohibitive favorite, I mean, at 3-5, it's almost hard to bet on him, right? And so it is a perfect season to just put $10 on one of the long shots, because prohibitive favorites haven't historically done really well in the Kentucky Derby. And so it's the perfect year to just throw $10 on a horse that you like its name. I like, a horse like King Guillermo. I'm going to take King Guillermo because my buddy from high school's name was Guillermo, right? Like whatever it is.
That's right. That's right. And who could argue with that logic? I mean,
exactly.
That makes sense. We're talking with Donna Brothers of NBC Sports. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. I also want to talk to Donna about the other interests she has, and she's been working with the care and safety of the horse in that coalition. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. My dear friend and colleague at NBC Sports, Donna Brothers, joins us. We're talking about the Derby and the crazy year and who knows what could happen and all the long shots in there. I want to talk to you now, though, about the involvement you've had with the coalition that was formed earlier this year, I believe, Donna, and how work has progressed in keeping the horses safe and the track safe and what all's going on in that world with you.
Yeah, so it's the Thoroughbred Safety Coalition. It came together with a group of really industry leaders. So the 5 tracks that are involved are Churchill Downs, Keeneland, Del Mar, the Stronach Group and all their tracks, and then, of course, the New York Racing Association. And Breeders' Cup is also a part of the founding members of that group. And so it just was a initiative to try to make horse racing safer. And it starts with the horses. And so that's really where it started, is how do we keep these horses safer? And, of course, that trickles down to the jockeys. If you can keep the horses safer, you can keep the jockeys safer. And it's really been, for me, it's been great to see these powerhouse tracks come together, sit down at the table with a common mission of making horse racing safer. And you know what? They are. They've already had some reforms that they've implemented, and I feel like they've just done an amazing job so far. And then, as you know, this Horse Racing Integrity Safety Act was just mentioned in the news yesterday because it's a bill that Mitch McConnell now supports, and it's because Churchill Downs has got behind that bill. And I think it's because it's an initiative that the Thoroughbred Safety Coalition said, you know, we need to do something. We need to be able to police this at a higher level, and the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act is part of that.
You know, what amazed me most about hearing that news earlier this week was that Andy Barr, congressman from Kentucky, a Republican, and Paul Tonko, a Democrat congressman from New York, actually had co-sponsored a bill earlier, and I guess they're tweaking some things and bringing back. And the whole point is, it could be the only thing Republicans and Democrats agree on. Horses need to be safe. That might be the only political stance I'll ever take on this show.
Yeah, I think that's a really good position, especially right now. I think Democrats and Republicans disagree for the sake of disagreement at this point.
Yeah, but you know, everybody loves an animal, don't they? Everybody really loves, like, horses and dogs and cats. It's hard not to. As far as you know, one of the big things to me has been talking about the safety is you haven't had any protests about the safety conditions. It seems to be a good year, fingers crossed for everyone, because there's been racing going on. It isn't like the other sports have been dormant. There's been racing around the country, and it does seem that there's been a lot of progress in keeping everybody safe.
Yeah, Kenny, you know, one of the things that makes it difficult is that the reality is that catastrophic injuries happen to or do not happen 99.584% of the time, something like that. So wow. It is really a rare occurrence. And because the fact is it's really a rare occurrence, it does make it hard to figure out what went wrong and make sure it doesn't happen again, because it truly is a rare occurrence. But the catastrophic rate of breakdowns has gone down 23% in the past 10 years since the Jockey Club's been keeping track of this. And so they're on the right track, and they're doing a lot better job than they've ever done. But unfortunately, those rare occurrences where a horse does have a catastrophic injury is what gets blown up on the media. And so people who aren't involved with horse racing think that it's a common occurrence, when in fact it's not even close.
See, I knew you would have that stat. Perfect. Because we've talked about this before. Let's get back to the Derby now. And I just people have said, how's it going to be with no fans there? I have no idea. I mean, I really don't. You know, at the Belmont, it's walking around. Nobody was counting. You know, obviously the trainers are there. The jockeys are there. Probably for some of the horses, it might be the best thing not to hear all that 150,000 people cheering. I know, you know, the humans, we like to feed off that energy. I'm not sure all the horses do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm not going to paint a rosy picture and be like, oh, no, it's fine. It'll still be a great. No, we need the fans. I mean, the fans are what make this sport come alive and make it electric and make it feel like it's significant and make you feel like you're at not just a sporting event, but at a big party. And so we need the fans. But we also need to keep people safe. So this year we're not going to have fans. We're going to make the most of it. We're going to do the best we can to bring the Derby race and all the other races into people's living rooms. But God, I can't wait to get fans back into the grandstands.
Me too. You know, I didn't care if they're yelling at me. Everybody loves you. Some yell at me, but that's okay. I'd like to just
No, some people tell me I suck too. Don't worry.
Well, you know what? There's nobody that's ever been on TV. Nobody's ever trained a horse or ridden a horse that doesn't hear that, right?
Exactly. That's okay.
You know, my favorite is the trainers that'll tell me, you know, when they're walking out and they maybe have a shot, double figure shot, 10-12-1, and they pull the upset and they win. And on the way back, some people are especially in New York, are booing them because they didn't tip them off as they walked out.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, why didn't you tell me today was your day?
Right. Either way, it's not going to be good. And then they're also booing the 4-5 favorite who got beat because they were supposed to win.
Did you have a favorite track in your riding days that was just kind of fun interaction with the fans, a place that you really enjoyed?
You know what? I'll tell you my favorite track for the fans, of course, is Keeneland. But my favorite track to ride at was what used to be called the Dueling Grounds. It's now Kentucky Downs, and it's down on the border near Tennessee. And the reason why it was such a fun track, and it still is, the riders who love that track love it as much as I did. But as you know already, but for people who haven't actually seen it, if you did an overhead view of it, it is shaped like half of a pear. So if you took a pear and cut it in half, and it's 1.5 miles circumference, the only time they run 1.5 mile race, or I'm sorry, the only time they use that really sharp top of the pear turn is when they run 1.5 mile race. So it's not really a problem because the only time you ever go into that turn is if you're going in 1.5 mile race and everybody's wanting to start off slowly anyway. But it also is undulating. So it goes downhill for a while and then veers to the left and then veers back to the right and then comes uphill. And so I just really loved riding that track because you had to be pretty strategic and understand the racetrack. And really good turf horses loved that track. For them, it was like just running in a field. But horses who didn't like the turf hated that track more than any track they'd ever been on.
Oh, wow. Donna, I loved catching up with you. What a great friend you are. You know that. And I guess I'll see you soon. I'll have my mask on, so we'll wave to each other 6 feet apart in Kentucky at the Derby, I guess.
I'm sure we'll twinkle our smiling eyes at each other, Kenny. Good to talk to you.
All right. Thank you so much. Donna Brothers, yes, the award-winning author and analyst and reporter for NBC Sports. We'll be at the Derby again together. When we come back, some final thoughts as we get ready for the Derby. Stay with us.
Welcome back into the Horse Racing Show. Thank you for tuning in again this week. Thanks to Mike Smith, who will be aboard Honor AP at the Derby, and Donna Brothers. You can see her on the NBC telecast, which is 2:30 to 7:30 Eastern Time on NBC. And at last, it's here. Happy news for all the people out there that finally the Derby has arrived. Obviously, we wish there could be fans there. We hope you'll be tuning in and watching the action on NBC. And what an interesting, strange trip this has been to get us all to this point of the Derby, where there's a bunch of long shots out there and a very strong favorite, almost overwhelming favorite right now in Tiz the Law. Will be on the outside post there with a couple other horses that are considered the best horses in it. Honor AP will be there, and along with him will be Authentic. And again, as we talked about, a bunch of long shots. One thing that doesn't change in horse racing, never underestimate timing and luck. And sad timing this week for Tommy Drury. Tommy was on a couple of weeks ago with us. He's the trainer of Art Collector, and you might remember the story. He was told that if he won the race, he would continue to train this horse. He's well known and respected as helping people get horses ready for the race. He is a trainer of some note, but in that regard. But this was his moment in the limelight, and there was a little issue with the horse's foot. They think everything's going to be okay, and they'll be able to run him in the Preakness. But, you know, you kind of hate it for him and Brian Hernandez and everybody involved with Art Collector, which proves one thing. The first Saturday in May or the first Saturday in September, everybody with a Derby connection is holding their breath until the gate breaks. That's the only time for sure that you know that your horse is in the Kentucky Derby. And from the time we tape this till the time they actually break for the roses once again, we hope everybody stays safe and healthy and their horses are ready to go. In Saratoga Stable, I think is going to bring the big yellow school bus again this year. You might remember Jack Knowlton talking to us. They brought it to the Derby in 2003 with Funny Side. So a little bit of superstition in there, perhaps. A little bit of hoping for luck with Tiz the Law. The yellow school bus runs in one more time to Churchill Downs. And will it mean that Tiz the Law, just like Funny Side, moves to the head of the class? He certainly is the one to beat. He's done nothing wrong this year. Perhaps he's even gotten better because that Travers performance was so impressive since winning the Belmont. Ben Chaffins, as always, thank you, pal. I know that you'll be watching from a social distance. I'll wave to you.
I will be as socially distant as I can be because I'll just be watching you through the TV.
You think Tiz the Law's going to do it?
You know, I think he's got a good shot, but like Donna said, that overwhelming favorite hasn't really won in some time. And with 8 horses as a long shot, 50-1, I mean, odds are that a long shot might win.
There could be a big payoff. Thank you for paying time with us this week. I'm Kenny Rice. We'll talk next week on The Horse Racing Show.